Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Time with Byron. I am your host, Byron. This is episode number 95. Wow, itching closer to 100. I don't know who I'm going to have yet for my special 100, but who knows? I don't know. We'll see. But until then, we are live on YouTube at Coffee Time. You can follow us there, subscribe, whatever you like. We are also available on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, and now Amazon Music. So if you have Alexa, say Coffee Time with Byron and hear the episodes if you like. But alongside me is former MLB player Bill Selby. How are you tonight? Thank you for
I'm
joining us.
I'm wonderful. How about yourself? I'm glad to be here.
Hanging in there, trying to get out of this pandemic, trying to get out of it, and
Coming.
enjoying what we can of the season coming up here within the week. Yeah, what is it? This week is opening
Yep,
week.
yep.
Crazy.
We're excited about it.
I didn't think there was going to be. Let's start off there. I didn't think honestly there was going to be a season. Did you?
I did. I mean, a lot of times when it's time for the bargaining agreements to be done, there's a lot of posturing on both sides, and understandably so. You want the best working environment for your players and the owners who fund the projects. They really want the bang for the buck. So it's just sometimes it's stances or posturing and having a little bit of leverage bargaining wise. But I think everybody wants baseball, and I'm excited to get ready to go.
Now, were you? I know it said you made your debut in '96. Were you in the minors at least when uh the first lockout occurred in 90? I believe it was 94 or 95. Were you in the minors when that happened?
I was fresh out of Lynchburg, Virginia, which was A ball for the Red Sox, and so I can remember going to spring training late. Uh, Showed up and we had a abbreviated spring training, and I was on the roster at the time, the 40-man
Mm.
roster. So I went to big league camp as soon as they allowed us to go. It was real abbreviated. Season broke off, and guys got back to work doing what they love to do. I was a part of it.
Now, how did that process? Because I had somebody previously on my last guest. I had he was a part of the whole minor league lockout as well, along with that lockout. Now, in that spring training, he had Tom Glavine, who was a big part of the players, whatever that at that time in minors, because he played for the Braves, and he told me that Tom Glavine told him at spring training about what was going on. Did you have anybody say any player or whoever was a part of the big rig roster tell you what was going on in that during that whole process about the whole lockout deal?
Sure. At the time of what we were going on, Roger Clemens was our player representative in Boston at the time, and he was very informative as far as keeping everybody on their toes, and this is what's happening, and we got constant updates while before we could go down, and once spring training happened, any questions we had, he was an open door. And for me at the time, I'd only played a year and a half. I was fresh out of college, so I only had a year and a half under my belt, and I was relatively young.
Hmm.
For those it really affected, it really affected me because I was on the 40-man roster, and so it saved me in a way because all I had to do was just do what I was told, especially being young. So no, I had great player representation, especially at the big league level, and being young, I just basically said, hey, just tell me what I need to know and where I need to go, and I'll be there.
Now, it doesn't tell me on here on my end, but were you drafted or did you go undrafted?
No, I played 4 years of college ball, my last two being at Southern Mississippi, and I got drafted my senior year of college by the Red Sox. Yep.
How did that process go? Who scouted you? And did you know you were going to go where you were at in the draft?
No, and that's I'm a junior college coach now. It's my 16th year, and so a lot of times when it comes close to the draft, we've had several players drafted, and
Mhm.
we have a few players still playing right now, and then we probably have a few on this team now that might have a shot once the draft comes around, and you kind of explain to them, look, you'll see scouts all the time. Some may even want to work you out. Some may want to come in your home and talk to you about signability and things like that, and would you
Hmm.
like to play, and what kind of money would it take, and all these things. And then you just never know what's going to happen.
Right.
It's big business, and there's for every Bill Selby in South Mississippi at the time as a senior in college that one scout's talking to, you know, there's 30 other teams that are doing the same thing with the
Right.
same player. And so basically, what was funny about it is I kind of grew up a Yankees fan because of my age, and that's
Hmm.
who I could watch a lot of was the Yankees. And
Hmm.
so on TV, and so we were limited to the Yankees, and I got to watch the Yankees and grew up watching them and loving them. And I worked out my senior year with a few scouts, and I got a call the night before the draft saying, "Hey, how would you like to be hitting home runs in the Yankee Stadium?" And it was a Yankee scout. And I thought, "Oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened." And
Hmm.
it's funny, the next day during the draft, I got drafted by the Red Sox. So I instantly went from being a Yankees fan to which is a completely flipped the script. And I'd never seen a Red Sox game. I'm sure they were there at games and things like that. So I worked out a lot with different organizations as far as they'd come and watch me play one position, and then the next day they'd say, "Hey, can you come over and take some ground balls at second or whatever?" You just never know. You play the game and you love it, and if you're good enough and that opportunity arises, you just it happens how it happens. You really don't know how it's going to happen.
Did you ever get to find out though? You mean after you got drafted, or did you ever get to find out though how many teams were interested in you
You
before the?
don't. I mean, at the time, this is before really the technicality of agents and advisors and all the things that we have now. My college coach at the time, Hill Denson, at Southern Mississippi, connected me with what became my agent at the time after I got drafted. But he connected me with him as far as a friend of his, and we talked a little bit of what's going to happen. And once I got drafted, yeah, there were several teams that said they had interest. You don't know how much they can
Right.
say what they say, and the relevance of it. How many were really it doesn't matter now because I became a Red Sox, and the rest is history. So
So, what's before you get drafted? Let's take you back to your college years. Like you said, you played 4 years. You played up until your senior year. Not many players in this day and age get to say that or do that because they all want to get to drafted and get right away for that money. You did the
right.
right way. You played 4 years to get yourself ready. So take us through those 4 years in college. How was it your team wise playing there were 4 years? How'd you enjoy it, and did you get to at least compete for any college World Series or whatnot? Or how'd you enjoy your college life?
Well, what's kind of unique about it and neat about it is it kind of mirrored and kind of gave a foreshadowing of what my professional career came from.
Hmm.
Was traveling around to different teams and playing with different organizations because my freshman year, I was from a small town. I still live here in Mississippi, and from a
Hmm.
small area here in Mississippi, and I kind of wanted to get away, and go play. And the first chance I did after the high school all-star game, I got a chance to go to Birmingham Southern, which was in Alabama. And at the
Hmm.
time was an AI school, and signed with them. Went to school there. It was a very difficult school as far as academics go. Wasn't prepared. I was a smart kid, but I was in the understanding that I'm going to play baseball, and I just happened to get to do it in college. So, but also back then, we in my age group, we were more about I want to get my school paid for. That was more of the instead of the what can this program do for me professionally. It was more of the college experience and getting a chance to get my school paid for to play baseball. So anyway, played there my freshman year. A bunch of us transferred out. They had a coaching change. A bunch of us transferred out, and I transferred back to the local junior college, which I'm a coach of now and have been since I retired. And from there, I had more opportunities. Had a really good year my sophomore year, and so I ended up at Southern Mississippi for my last 2 years. And as far as what we were able to accomplish, it was my first chance of really getting to play bigger baseball. We played SEC teams, obviously
Right.
Tennessee and Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and we actually traveled up and played at Ohio State and kind of all over the country. It's my first chance of doing that in I guess at the time big time baseball, and so it was neat. My junior year, we made it to a regional in Texas, and so and actually Texas eliminated us after a long night against Long Beach State. And so that was my senior year. We didn't get to go back, and at that point, you do the best you can. You play in conference tournaments, and you
Mm-hmm.
hope you get a chance. It's a little different now with regionals and super regionals and more opportunities. But nevertheless, it was a great experience, and so different from when you sign a professional contract and become a professional. That amateurish. I hope we play in this, and I hope we play in this, and it's cool to go here. You literally become a businessman and a small business owner of yourself, and learn to take your game from an amateur level of the things that you enjoyed as an amateur to a professional, and it becoming a job.
Now, when you were playing in college for those teams, did you? Now, you obviously were not not a big school that you went to.
Right.
Now, were you able to upset any big teams during those times that you played, either in the College World Series or during the season? Did you have any upsets?
I think my junior year at Southern Mississippi, we played Florida State, who was, I want to say, in the top five at the time,
Mm-hmm.
years ago. And I remember because Eduardo Perez was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro Grifol played in the big leagues. Chris Roberts, who's a Mets draft guy. We upset them in the conference tournament. I think that helped us to get to the College World Series. I mean, the regional in Texas. Uh, I remember playing the regional, and against, we opened up with Long Beach State, and we had the last game on the first night, and we ended up going, and that they had Jason Giambi on that team. So I remember him from that team at Long Beach, and we had, I bet we played 15, I want to say 14, 15, 16 innings
Mm-hmm.
opening night, and we ended up getting beat by a run, and then we had to turn, I bet, and then we had, had drug testing afterwards, which happens a lot at, NCAA events back then, and so we had a couple guys that had to use the bathroom for a drug test, and it took
Mm-hmm.
hours to do that, and we had to getting back to the hotel. It was 2 or 3 in the morning, and we had to turn around and play Texas at their place at 10 in
Oof.
the morning. No, there was no upsets happening then. So, but nevertheless, that was a good experience. So I look back at it and we laugh and how fun it was. But uh, yeah, that was the closest we came to anything major in college.
Now, you make your debut, like we talked about, in April that year, 96 for the Boston Red Sox. You spent a couple years, like you said, in the minors. So then you finally make your debut. Tell us about that experience. Did you have goosebumps? How well did you fare in that game? And did you have all your family there with you?
Here, and you got to understand, I'm older, so this was the days really as cell phones were first coming out. So we didn't have a cell phone at the time.
Right, yeah, exactly. I know that, yeah.
Yeah. So we were. I'll tell you the story about getting called up because it was unique. I had been to a couple of spring trainings in '94 when there was a strike.
Right,
Uh, I was on the roster, but I was fresh out of A-ball, and so I was kind of starstruck for a minute because I'm around, Jose Canseco and
right,
Roger Clemens and Mo Vaughn and all these guys.
right.
But it only lasted a few weeks, and so I remember I got invited to camp a couple of years later, actually the next year, and but I was one of the first cuts. And then the year I got called up in '96, I went to camp early, got a little bit of time, got a little bit more comfortable with the guys. But I remember they sent me back down to AAA
Mm-hmm.
in spring training, and then they let me go. They pulled me up like they do to make a couple of trips in the big leagues
Mm-hmm.
for the last couple of road trips before they went to Boston and broke camp. And so I did that. I got a little bit familiar. Well, I broke camp with AAA in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and back then a lot of organizations, AAA programs, or teams were full of, I don't want to use the word big league veterans, but older professionals who had some big league service time, right? Instead of the 21-year-old super prospect, you had a lot of 28, 29-year-old guys that had a couple of years of service time. It was a really talented, back there in the International League back then. But anyway, I was one of the younger guys at the time, so I remember breaking camp with them and everything, and still wasn't making a lot of money. And I can remember there was a point that I told my wife that she was back home going to school and working. I told her, I said, look, I don't know if I can do this. I got 2 roommates. We can't afford it here to pay
Mm-hmm.
for it. Providence, Rhode Island is expensive for us. And I said, I don't know that I can do this. And she's working, and we're trying to make ends meet.
Right.
And we went on a road trip to Columbus. We were in Columbus, Ohio, and at the time, Columbus was the Yankees AAA club and the Clippers, and they were in an old stadium there. And my wife had made it. She was going to be on our next homestand, meet us back off that homestand,
Mm-hmm.
and fly out for a few days. Anyway, so we go to Columbus. The last night we're there. I had a great tournament. I mean, a great series, 4-game series. I remember we had a roving instructor coming to town, and they moved me to second base, or actually I was playing second base, but they moved me to third base for a couple games. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was strange, but they just wanted to see me play third base a couple games. So, I was young. I said, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. But anyway, I had some great games. I was doing well at the time. And I remember I signed a few autographs, and that's another story for, the Selby is God fan club. It was a unique night, too. But I remember signing a few autographs. I was kind of one of the last ones to go into the locker room, shower, get ready to go back home
Right.
to protect it. And I got called in the office, and Buddy Bailey, our manager at the time, said, "Hey, what did you feel like at third base?" I said, "Well, I played it when I first came up." And he said, "Well, yeah, did you feel good at, tonight?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I feel fine. I knocked it down, threw them out. I didn't make any errors or anything like that." He said, "Well, could you think you could play it in the big leagues?"
Right.
And I didn't understand what he's saying at the time, but I said, "Well, yeah." And he says, he kind of looked at me and he said, "Well, good. So you fly out first thing in the morning." I'm like, "Really?" And it was just shocking. It was one of the greatest moments, especially in baseball, when you find out. Of course, I come out of the locker room, out into the locker room, out of the office, and all the guys know. And so they're all, "Yeah, this is great." And so I remember getting back on the team bus, going back to the hotel, and I had to call my wife because she had flown into Pawtucket that night.
Mm-hmm.
And she's from Mississippi, hadn't traveled around a lot at that point in her life. And so I called her from the hotel phone, and she's kind of upset. And I'm like, "Well, Terry, what's going on?" And she said, "Look, I got to tell you, she had never been in a cab at this point. So she said, I had to take a cab. It was shady. I was like, we're going around. I'm like, I'm told them you played, and this is the hotel you got me that we're staying in, and blah blah
Right.
blah." And it's
Right.
uncomfortable, and oh my gosh, it was a bad experience. Something happened to my luggage, and blah blah blah. It's late. It's 12:30 at night, right early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called her and I said, "Well, I got some bad news and I got some good news." And she said, "Oh my God, I can't take any bad news." "Well, the bad news is I'm not coming back to Pawtucket tonight." She said, "Oh my God, are you serious? This is the worst night I've ever had." And I said, "But the good news is I got called up to the big leagues, and and I fly out in the morning. We're gonna meet the ball. I was with the Red Sox. We're gonna meet the team in Cleveland, and they're gonna fly you into Cleveland."
Mm-hmm.
It was silent on the phone. "You there?" She said, "Yes." I said, "This is a joke. This ain't funny. I'm telling you, this ain't funny." I said, "It's not a joke." She said, "Oh my God, I got to call everybody." So anyway, long story short, she got the phone. I didn't sleep a wink that night.
Uh-huh.
And connecting flight met her connecting flight, and we flew into Cleveland, got in a cab, took it to the hotel. Our hitting coach at the time, Jim Rice, was downstairs. I got there, it's about lunchtime. He said, "Look, so take care of your paperwork up in your room. You got early BP at, I don't know, 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever.
Right.
Congratulations." We go up to the hotel room, and we're sitting there. I was about to retire a week earlier because I wasn't making any money. And then here we were sitting in this giant hotel in Cleveland going, is this real? Is this real?
Right.
And
Right.
and it was just her. But anyway, so we signed a contract. She sat there a while, and while I sit there, we talk. I said, "All right, I'm going to the field. I want to be late." So I remember sitting there, and I guess it's another good story, and I probably should write a book about some of the things that's happened. But
Yeah, you
get to the
probably.
game. Well, I mean, there's so many unique things happen that when you recall, they're fun.
No,
But I
I know.
remember and some people that hear this will enjoy this because they'll understand the difference. But I get to there, and I met the guy going out that I got called up for, and talked to him, and we ended up playing together later in my career. But I'm sure he was disappointed, but whatever. But I get there early BP, everything's great, shake hands. All the guys that I was starstruck with now were like, "What's up, Selby? Congratulations," and all this, and made me feel comfortable. Well, anyway, we played that night, and that was still in Cleveland's heyday, and they were still loaded. They were still
Yeah, when they
packing
were
out.
loaded. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, still packing out Jacobs Field every night, sold out. And I remember I sit there and watch the game, and I was on the bench the whole game, and I'm sitting there watching, and about the eighth inning, the bottom of the eighth, right as it started, the bottom of the eighth, the bench coach Tim Johnson comes down to me. I was in the middle of the bench. I didn't really want to go to either end. I thought I don't want to look like I'm not part of it. But I don't want to look like I'm too part of it. All these things I was battling in my head.
Right.
And he comes down to me. He said, "Hey, Selby, look, you're going to hit for Beltray in the top of the ninth." I said, "Oh my gosh, okay." So first game, here I am. I'm a pinch hit, and I
You're a
couldn't.
legend.
Yeah, well, and so what was funny is, so I'm nervous because we got to get three outs, and it's taking about 20 minutes to get three outs, and I got a hit, and in my first big league game, in my first big league stadium, and so needless to say, we get three outs. Beltray comes to me and says, "Hey, look, you're hitting for me. Congrats, good luck, man. Go do your thing." And so he was happy for me actually.
Right.
So I go on deck, and I just been on like an 8-game road trip, and in the minor leagues you just don't order bats every 5 minutes when you run out. So I'd broken a couple of bats. I'm down to one bat, one game bat, one practice bat. So I've got my game bat, and you're limited with your pine tar and all this accessories and everything like this. So I was used to the AAA pine tar. Was, man, we need some more on this pine tar, right? We didn't have enough. So I go up on. I never forget this as long as I live, and only a few people know the story. I know my son knows it, but I go up on deck because I'm leading off the inning.
Right.
And I kind of glance to see who's coming in, who I've got to face. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's their closer. Here comes Jose Mesa. We're down 6 runs, and he's just coming in and getting an inning worth of work. It's like, oh my God, he throws 100. So he's jogging in like this, and I'm walking up on the on deck circle, and I reach down, and there's 20 pine tar rags. It seemed like there's stuff everywhere, bat weights everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got so much stuff here. Well, he's throwing warm up pitches, and I grab my pine tar rag. And I was watching him throw, and I didn't realize it had so much pine tar on it because I wasn't used to that. So next thing you know, I squeeze it on there, and I'm like, oh no, it's just gooped everywhere. I'm like, I can't hit this stuff all over. So I'm sitting there trying to wipe this pine tar off before my first big league at bat. I didn't even get to watch him throw any, and I spent 3 minutes trying to get this excess pine tar off my bat. So I remember walking up to the plate when I got there, and they announced me pinch hitting. And my wife was in the stand. She tells me to this day, she said, "Oh my God, I couldn't breathe when you came up." And I remember what was so cool about it was I walked to the plate. Now we're in Yankee Stadium. We just came from Columbus. Nothing against Columbus's old stadium. I love playing it, but it was older. The lighting looked like it was daytime. It was so bright. That was the first thing I noticed. Like, oh my gosh, it's so bright out here when I went to hit. Yeah. And on top of it, it's like he looks like he's throwing from second base so far away, like because you could see so well. And so I remember I took the first pitch, and I was like, well, that wasn't so bad. It's like 97 or 98. I ended up, I hit a base hit to left. I hit a line drive to left on a 2-2 count, and got to first base. And of course, they did the whole throw the ball in, give it to the first base coach. And our first base coach at the time was Frank White, and he handed it to me, and you look at it, and congratulations stuff. It all happened so fast, and I didn't really get a chance to get nervous going to the plate because I was so concerned about all the pine tar that was stuck on my bat. So maybe that took a little bit of the edge off, but it was a unique first at bat for sure.
I bet. Speaking of Jose Mesa, who's a legend in his own right, I know you didn't want to go in there, but go figure. Go figure. That's your debut. You get to face a guy that's throwing 100. Did you ever get to meet him or talk to him after that? After you had your first at bat off of him?
I didn't. I mean, there's a camaraderie with the teams. It's in amateur it's a little different. It's not as they're kids that know each other and things like that. But in pro ball, when we hit, if you're the home team and you're hitting at 4:00. So you're hitting, and by the time the last group is hitting, and you're hitting outside, the other team comes and stretches, and they don't stretch in the outfield like amateur ball. They stretch right there by the cages. So there's some back and forth talking, how you doing, and how's this. But I never ran across Jose as far as knowing him, just playing against him and respecting him. He was a little older than me at the time. It's ironic that a few years later, when I came back from Japan, I signed with Cleveland and got to be teammates with a lot of the guys that were there at the time.
Yeah, go figure. And I'm going to ask you about that now, too, before we get to that tenure with Cleveland. Yeah, you play 1 year over in Japan. I got to ask you, what happened there? Did no team want you? What happened to that whole experience and why you had to go over to Japan?
It wasn't I had to go. It was a situation where, I got to the end of the year, my rookie year there in Boston, at the end of that year, And our general manager at the time, uh, before September came and our minor league season was up, he
Mm.
called me. I didn't go up when the September call ups went up. I went home for about 4 or 5 days, and then he called me and said, "Hey, we need you to meet us in Yankee Stadium. Come back for September call up." So anyway, I go to the Yankee Stadium and I go meet with him, and he said, "Look," and my agent had kind of given me a heads up. He says, "Look, your situation next year," because I went up for somebody that got injured, and
Mm.
so when that established big leaguer came back, well, I went back down. And then when somebody else got hurt, I went back up. So I was really riding a roller coaster of filling in for the guy that got hurt as opposed to them making a trade and going up. So anyway,
Right.
so he said, "Look, I'm going to give you a choice, Bill." He said, "There's a Japanese team that would love to buy your contract now. You go there for 1 year, and you could come back, and you won't even be a free agent. You'll be a Boston Red Sox when you come back." He
Okay.
said, "You make a good chunk of change, or basically your year next year is going to be up and down.
Up
The
to
same as what you did this year." So after praying and talking to my wife about it, we discussed it a lot with family. Just it turned out, what, let's give it a shot. Under the conditions that when I come back, I'm a free agent, so then I can open up doors elsewhere.
right.
And so they gave me. It wasn't like you got to go to Japan. It was, they want to buy your contract, and only if you will let them do it. So, and we did, and it, I was young at the time and fresh out of the big leagues, and I won't say it was an ego shot, but you go over there with a certain expectation of, well, look, man, I'm just coming from the big leagues. I mean, don't you know who I am?
Right.
To a very structured, extremely, extremely talented league in Japan, and I had a really good spring training, and I was telling one of our players today, we were talking about, I said, I just got out of the gates a little slow,
Mm.
and they avoided a few things that I wasn't quite developed yet. And then it turns out I spent a lot of the time, I don't want to say playing off the bench, but in a just a sparing role. I was very important off the bench, but my starts only came when it was a foreigner that was pitching that game. So
Right.
it was a unique time. I look back on it now as an older man and thinking, well, I could have kind of blown an opportunity to stay there longer if had a much more mature attitude, or I really do look back and say that was a fun time. I got my family and everyone got to enjoy that opportunity we had in Japan. So, and then when I came back, I was a free agent, and that's when all happened with Cleveland.
Now, how well did how I know it was only 1 year, but how well did your team fare that season? And who did you get who did you play against that were MLB quality stars?
Well, the way I explain it to people over there, and it's and without trying to discredit anything they do, I think they have big leaguers on every team, got big league caliber players on every team. They
Mm.
don't have as many as what you're going to find here in the States.
Right.
But our closer was Sasaki, who pitched in the for the Seattle for years, and he was our closer there. Ichiro was in the league at the time. Suzuki, that played with the Yankees at the time, was the Yomiuri Giants over there. So I played with the Yokohama Bay Stars, and we were more of a younger team. As a matter of fact, one of the other foreigners that I played with at the time was an established foreigner there. He'd been there, it was his 4th year, and I think he ended up playing over 10 years there, a
Mm.
guy named Bobby Rose, and he was talented. Uh, but you have more of an array of ability level on their roster. You know what I mean? You'll have double A guys here at the bottom of the spectrum, and then you'll have an Ichiro who's a bona fide superstar in the States. And
Right.
so it's sprinkled in everywhere like that, but very regimented, very talented. Our team was probably middle of the pack, maybe a little bit better than middle of the pack, but we were very young. Um, but that was a unique experience. The Giants over there at the time, the Yomiuri Giants, who really are talented every year, they were really good over there. And it was a different brand of baseball. So when you make comparisons, they play a different style of what we're typically used to seeing nowadays, especially nowadays. And it's what I wish I could make amateur players establish themselves by, because it's so regimented, and there's so much accountability there of doing things the right way, and we're going to continue to do it over and over and over until we get it right, and then till we never can get it wrong. So yes, it was a good experience. We were just an average run of the mill team, but very promoted. Other than sumo wrestling, we were probably the most important thing in the country as far as sports goes.
So, like you said, then you come back. Your next team is the Cleveland Indians. You play for them. Uh, you get to go. Well, you get to play against, like you said, Jose Mesa and guys like that. Uh, what was your experience? Go figure. When you debuted against them, what was it like playing for them, the team that you debuted against?
Well, it was unique because at the time when I got back to Cleveland, I signed a minor league contract. I was in AAA for about 2.5 years before I got a chance to go up. Now I got to go to spring training my second year, or I was in big league camp some. I didn't really get much of an opportunity, so I got to know a little bit of the guys. Some of the guys had filtered out, but there were still, the Jim Tomies, the Sandy and Robbie Alomars, Dave Justice, um, CC Sabathia was young at the time, Ellis Burke, Kenny Lofton, all those guys were there. So I got to know them a little bit in spring training. So when I finally did get the opportunity to go up, back to the big leagues in 2000, it wasn't too strange, you know what I mean? Because I'd had a little bit of interaction in spring training for the years prior. And so, wonderful organization. I was very fortunate. I just, from the top down, it was just a wonderfully run organization. They gave me ample opportunities in the role that I was best suited for. And so, it was just a first class all the way from anybody that worked at the stadium to the front office to the trainers to the. It's just it was just such a great experience for Cleveland. Really a great experience.
So then the following year, even though you come back to Cleveland, I'll get to that in a second. You go to the rival team across the bay.
Right.
I even know it's not the bay, but you get what I'm saying. You
Yep.
go to the rival Reds.
Right.
what what was that experience like? Because I'm sure you guys had to play. I'm sure Interleague was still around. You guys had to play the Indians. What was that experience like?
Well, it was pretty cool actually. When when I became a free agent after the 2000 season when I got called up, that's kind of a for guys that don't sign multi-year deals that are spend their winter trying to find somewhere to play, uh, which was basically the majority of my career. Um, it can be a little nerve wracking, but also, I just got back to the big leagues in 2000. I spent a few years in minor leagues and in Japan, and so it's been about 4 years since I've been in the big leagues. And I was very limited that first year back with Cleveland because they were so loaded, and I rarely ever played.
Right.
But I the, at the end of the year, there were opportunities elsewhere, and so Cincinnati was one of them. So I took that, uh, and it was a completely different makeup with the team. Younger guys, looser, having fun. Uh, I was talking about Ken Griffey and his dad today because Griffey was on that team, but his dad was a hitting coach, and I really, really enjoyed my time with him. But yes, we got to play interleague, and yes, I did have some success against because at that time I was getting some at bats with Cincinnati because I kind of rode the roller coaster with them too. But I was in the big leagues when we played interleague against them, and I did have a little bit of success against them, so that's unique and that was fun because it was guys I just played with the year before and guys that I was actually friends with. And so that was kind of unique, but that was a good experience there too because the National League was more suited, really, honestly, for the type of player I was, being utility and more opportunities to get in games.
Now, why? Tell me why you were part of that team, and obviously, you like you said, you had Griffey Senior being your coach, along with I got to say one of the greatest players of all time, the kid, because he literally was to
Oh,
me one of the greatest of all time.
absolutely.
He was way better than his daddy for sure. Why you had a who's who of other players on that team? Barry Larkin, I
Oh, yeah.
believe. I believe Sean Casey might have been on
John
that
Case
team.
was there. Pokey Reese.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pokey Reese.
Mr.
You had a
Young.
who's who. But
Yeah.
why do you guys think you couldn't do anything that year? Knowing that was it because of the pitching did not help you. What was the problem?
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's funny because I'll correlate those years with what we think as far as, let's just say, the Mississippi Junior College League, which I'm going to give a shout out to all our 15 schools in the state of Mississippi, but
Mm.
we go into every fall with our rosters going, man, it's on paper, we're excited. This is exactly what we need. Or you get ready to go into the spring and you say, all right, we may need a transfer here or whatever, but everybody goes in going, we got what we want, let's roll with it. Then there's an
Right.
injury here, or some guy doesn't develop, or this guy doesn't pan out, or whatever the case may be. And I think more so in Cincinnati, the pitching turnover, there was a little bit of turnover in pitching. Those guys were younger, so there was Larkin was hurt some during the year, and he's such a leader and such a pro. I guess that's the best way to put it. I think Griffey had some stints where he was hurt. And so there was the continuity. It wasn't anything about the ability level, just some continuity. A lot of things have to go right to win national championships and World Series. A lot of things have to go right, and things have to fall in places, and you have to have the right pieces at the right time. And there was a talented team that just really, for whatever reason, couldn't quite make everything happen at one time. But it was a fun team. Don't get me wrong. Now I had a blast because they enjoyed baseball really.
Yeah,
So,
they were crazy. I
yeah.
bet you they were crazy in the clubhouse. That's a who's who's.
Well, it wasn't the craziness. The find crazy. They were a very happy, thankful group, meaning that they were thankful. They were talented. Yes, they enjoyed what they did. That's what I liked so much about that group was, and we had a good group in AAA that was fun to be with too, there in Louisville. And so it was just around a bunch of guys that were a little younger, extremely talented, and enjoyed the game itself. It was still a game to them, and so that was what was so good about being around that group and that organization that year.
So then, like you said, you finish off your career, you leave there, you go back to the Indians. Did you know then and there, right there, that was indeed going to be your last team and your final MLB games right there in Cleveland? Did you know it was going to be over?
No, I mean, because at the time, I didn't really start getting more at bats until I got to my late 20s and started in my early 30s. I got more at bats then. I think I wasn't ready at 25 and 26 years old to warrant extra at bats because there were some things that still had to develop. And so I think I developed a little late as far as the maturity of my at bats and the maturity of my defense and the ability to play multiple positions. But, you go back every year going, I'm going to play this until I don't feel like I can get any better or the opportunities stop happening. And so when I went back to Cleveland next year, it wasn't based on it. I hated Cincinnati. I loved Cincinnati. It was based on that fit where my opportunities to get there, they're familiar with me. There's some pieces that I might feel a little bit better than where I'm at or the other teams that were interested. So that's why I kind of went back. There's some familiarity there that they wanted me to come back, and I got some AB in the big leagues that year with Cincinnati, so that was a little bit of experience that helped me. And so that it was just the best fit. It was hard to not re-sign with Cleveland after that next year. And so, no, you never go into it going, this is my last year, and I don't think I'll ever play another big league game. You go into it thinking, all right, this is the best fit for my family and I at this point in time.
So now tell me about this. I see you are inducted into the Buffalo Bison's Hall of Fame, which is now affiliate to the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe.
Right.
But at the time, I believe it was the Cleveland Indians, correct?
Yes.
So tell us about that. How did that come about? How did that come about that you were inducted into the Hall of Fame there?
Well, first of all, I love Buffalo. My son goes to Niagara University, and we're partial to that area of the country, even though the climate is so different from what we're used to. Eli's I talked to my son today, and he's sending me a picture, and he's got a toboggan on and a jacket, and I'm like, Eli, man, I'm in shorts. It's 75 degrees here right now. So other than that, I spent portions of all of 1998, 99, half of 2000 season. I want to say some of 2002 and 2003 in Buffalo alone in my AAA time. I'm pretty sure that's right. And, again, it stems from how the organization's run. And, from the owners, Ed Rich at the time and Butchkowski and all the guys that ran that organization as as professional as you could, it made for a very welcoming time there for somebody from Mississippi, way out of the way. It was,
Right.
a guy riding a roller coaster could easily be like, "Oh, this is miserable. I'm in AAA again." It made for an enjoyable time. We always fielded a quality team. We always had good players. We always had a right mix. We had great managers, great city to play in, supportive, great stadium to play in, and so those years there made it a lot easier to focus on, man, I can produce here because I'm happy. Sometimes production maybe lags in a professional when your mind's all thinking, I should be over here. My opportunity should be over here. You get so lost in Buffalo going, man, this is so nice here. This is the big leagues for me. And so I just had some really, really good years there.
Yeah. I'm going to read off some of the
I'm
stats here that
fortunate.
you had. I'm going to read off some of the stats you. Yeah, it's impressive. You had you ranked first in hits for them, 378, doubles, 90, RBIs, 245, and runs, 217. You are also second with games played with them in 370, and third in home runs in 60, and you won the MVP with them in 99. So pretty
Right.
impressive stats. So I can see why they put you in the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, so I was honored. I know there's not many people that are inducted in that Hall of Fame, so I
No,
feel honored
no.
to be there. And so uh, it just I can't I really feel like the ability to have success there, and I think with a lot of players is the ability to find happiness where you are and not look at it as, man, I'm in AAA, this is miserable. It was so enjoyable for me there, not only with the organization but with the teammates that I had throughout those years. It was easy to just go play the game you love and at a higher level because you're having fun and it's enjoyable to go to the park every day. So I just was fortunate. I had some really good times there, and I'm still partial to Buffalo and always will be.
Now, I'm seeing this too. You were, while playing minor league baseball in 96 for the Pawtucket Red Sox, you get this Selby is God fans. Tell us more about that. What is that?
It's uh it's neat. We laugh about it all the time. My players look up Ryan Cunningham on Twitter all the time about it, but
Mhm.
the story is, and the best I can recollect, and I hope that I get everything right because these guys have been fun to stay in touch with throughout the years. That last night in Columbus. Now I don't know what the promotion was that night, the night that I got called up. Now I don't know what the promotion was, but there was a big crowd there. It could have been a dime hot dog night, or I don't know what it was. There's a lot of people.
Mhm.
And again, I was one of the younger guys there. And so a lot of guys on travel day, man, they're in a hurry. They're not trying to be rude. They're just like, look, sign a few autographs. I need to go shower. We need to get on the bus.
Mm.
Well, I was the last guy signing autographs. And I ended up giving one of the bats I'd broken away, and I signed this and gave a pair of batting gloves. I don't know. I just kept signing. I signed till I got everybody signed, which I tried to do throughout my career because, I was a kid that enjoyed it too. And so I got called up the next day, and I got to play that night. Well, there was three guys that was there in that crowd at Columbus, and Ryan Cunningham being the lead actor there. And so I get called up the next day. I go play. I had that one at bat. The next day I start. I want to say it was Oral Hershiser was the pitcher for Cleveland at the time.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, that sign's in the stands. It's in the second day I'm in the big leagues. There's a sign that says "Selby is God." And so I remember after the game, had a pretty good game, and after the game, I don't know if it was at the players' parking lot, we're going out, or wherever, I ran into them and said, look, we don't want anything from you. We just thought it was the coolest thing that you stayed around as long as you could to sign everybody's autograph without leaving. Would
Right.
you sign the poster?
Right.
Absolutely. Take a picture, sign a poster. Man, that's awesome. Good to see you guys. I ended up running into them probably 30 or 40 times in my career. From the rest of that season, when they came, they'd bring the sign, and I would sign. I probably signed it, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times. But other players would sign it, take pictures with it, and it was really a cool deal. And I've stayed in touch with them. I think one of them got married, and I signed some jerseys. They sent me as bachelor as the bachelor party presents, and so it's really cool. Those guys, they've never asked for anything. They didn't want anything. They weren't trying to do anything. They just thought it was cool that I signed autographs and I took time to do it. And
Yeah.
so we kind of built a relationship off of it, and that's where it went, you know. So it was pretty cool. And I want to understand, I think Ryan has a son that's a pretty good ball player himself. That should be an upperclassman in high school. So I need to get on that too. So
Yeah, because you're one of the few players that did that. Not many players signed autographs for everybody. Not many
yeah.
players do that.
Yeah, well, and and I never played. I can honestly say this, and I can say this publicly. I never played with anybody that would just say, "No, I'm not signing." I never did it, and I played with a bunch of superstars. Now there were those that would say, "Look, I can only sign so many because if they signed all of them, they would be there for hours." Now I
Right.
wasn't the guy that everybody wanted his autograph, but there's some that that have to be there till 3 in the morning. And so, but they would sign. Everybody I play with would sign. It just would be some would be limited, some would sign a lot, and I just felt like, well, look, I mean, I'll sign everybody. If they want it, I'll sign it. I don't mind. So that's the way I looked at it. I was appreciative of my job, so that's I guess if that's the only way I can give back, I'll give back.
So also, I see this too about this sign. It says now it's paid homage to. They did that because also it's to Cleveland Browns ex quarterback Bernie Kosar. Do you know anything about that? What that
I
sign
don't. No,
is?
I don't.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask because I see it on here. It's like, okay, that's weird. Um, and then your claim to fame is let's see if you remember this grand slam off one Mariano Rivera, which not many people say they can accomplish, but you did.
All right.
And I guess apparently it appeared on television in some thing called the Plain Dealer. I don't know what that is, but apparently it appeared in that.
Right.
Uh, you have
The
any
sign.
clue of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and what was neat is, since my parents were back here in Mississippi when I played, that was the days of the VCRs, not the DVDs. So,
Right,
and even
right.
DVDs are almost obsolete now, but they would record any game we might be on. So I have, we have transferred over to DVDs and probably should do it digitally too, but I have tons of video where there may be a game on ESPN and you would see the sign multiple times. So it was pretty cool. They got some publicity when the sign would get publicity, sometimes on TV. So that was pretty funny.
So now I see you also tell me how this came about. While you were on the Indians, one rookie, Travis Hafner, who I was also a fan of. Tell me about this. How'd you give him the nickname that you did? Because I see you gave him a nickname.
Yeah, and that was neat because that was, I want to say it might have been 2002. You had to be 2002 because that was on the. We were the guys with group four. We called ourselves the group four, which meant we were the last. We were the bench guys, and we didn't play as much, so we were the fourth group to hit. So we just called ourselves the guys of group four. It was Eddie Perez, John McDonald, myself, and Lee Stevens. And so I remember when we got Travis in a trade, and seeing him in spring training that year. He's, oh my gosh, what a talented dude and a great guy. And I remember seeing him. I was sitting there with Lee Stevens one day on the bench, and I think he hit one about 900 feet like he did every other swing. And I was like, dude, this dude is a donkey. I mean, he's just a straight donkey right here. And he said, yeah, I know, but and Lee was like, he's a good project to have. And then I was like, yeah, he's we just call him the Pronky since he's a project and a donkey. And then we just kind of shorten it to Pronk. And I remember him coming in the dugout and I called him something like that. And Travis was such a straight shooter and, was all businesslike all the time. And he was like, what did you call me? I said, Pronky. And then I kind of goofed around and said it like in Spanish, like El Pronko or the Pronk. And he said, oh, I like that. And from there on out, it just stuck. And that's where it came from. It's because we were like, man, what a great project to have. And he's such a donkey. And I just combined the two and just said, and he liked it. He just came in and said, oh, I like that. Call me that. I was like, all right, weigh me to 40 pounds. Well, I'll call you whatever you want. So, and it just stuck. And that was pretty cool about it. I saw him, I don't know, several years ago. Cleveland flew us back up for opening day for great moments. And at Jacobs Field, and he was there, and it's still prompt to me. So it's awesome.
So I want to take me through that Grand Slam that you're known for. What do you remember most about that Grand Slam? And what did he throw? Did he throw his infamous cutter? Is that how you
Oh
got
yeah,
him the Grand Slam?
oh yeah. Yeah, it what's neat about it is I had been sit down back to the minor leagues probably a week prior. And there's I don't remember the rule at the time is you have to be down for so many days unless somebody gets hurt or traded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember getting a call back saying Holbert Cabrera got traded and that you're coming back up. So the Yankees were in town. And I remember the day I got there, it's not too far from Buffalo. I mean, you're literally, a couple hours down the road. But
Yeah.
I remember getting an at bat that night off Mariano. And it was a meaningless at bat. But I just went up there and I remember I was like, well, I had to say, I faced him in spring training maybe. And I want to say I got a hit off of him. It wasn't anything hard, but I want to say I got a hit off of him in spring training. But this is a little different. This is at night. This is when he's in full season mode. And I just remember, golly, I felt I was all over that pitch, and it broke my bat. And I ended up hitting a kind of just an average ground ball to the first baseman and thinking, I felt like that pitch was right down the middle, and it just disappeared, I broke my bat. I remember talking to our hitting coach at the time, Eddie Murray, that night about it. I was like, man, I felt like I was all over it. It just kind of chased me, it just chased you. And we talked about getting inside the ball, some mechanical stuff. And he said, dude, if you get a chance to hit off of him again, why don't you just choke up? Well, I have no problem. That's 95, and it moves a foot and a half, and you can't see it move. It was so good. And so the next day, sure enough, I got to start that day. And the beginning, my first three at bats were god awful. I mean, they were awful. I got to start. Mussina was pitching, and it was a day game. Some shadow. I don't want to make any excuses, but because the changeup was really good. And I remember I popped up on a high pitch. I struck out a couple times. Really awful. And you're like, as a bench guy, you kind of live on those one games you get a week. Just like, golly, let me throw one hit out there, just to keep me floating until the next week. But anyway, so I was 0 for 3, and I remember coming up in the 8th, and Mike Stanton, lefty at the time I was with him in Boston a little bit, but anyway, he was with the Yankees at the time. And I remember I'm like, all right, well, I get it at bat against Stanton. That's great. Bona fide left-hander out of the pen.
Right.
And so I went up there, got 0-2 real quick, and I ended up getting a line shot, hit a base hit to right field. And this is the emotions that play in all this. These are the things that players understand. It's like, as a bench, especially bench guys. I get the hit, 1 for 4. I come back in the dugout at the end of the 8th inning, and I remember sitting down by Lee Stevens again. I'm like, whoo, I salvaged the day. It's an 0 for 3. It was awful. I got a hit off a pretty good left-hander, and I'm like, all right, I'm 1 for 4. That'll roll me into the next time I get to play at some point. And so, and then the 9th happened, and then it was just walk, hit, miss pop-up. It started falling into place, and I was sitting by Lee, and Lee goes, man, you're going to hit again. And I'm like, no way I'm going to hit again. And so, because all I could think of, I just salvaged today. I'm 1 for 4. I want to, I want to go out on a high note, and I got to go face him in this kind of game. But anyway, I remember going down in the tunnel below the steps right there at the dugout. Took a few swings, said a prayer, said, look, God, if I'm gonna get to hit right in this situation, just please be with me right here. And so I said a prayer, went up there. Sure enough, I think we pinch hit Travis Fryman, a righty, for Lee Stevens, who was a lefty, in front of me. Because righties, I don't know if it's more success because there's really nobody had success against him. But I think righties had a little bit more on average success than the lefties did. And so I think he struck out on 3 pitches, and I was like, oh, wow. So, the stands are jumping all over the place. It just was improbable how it happened. And I remember going up there, and 2 balls, no strikes, and I was taken all the way. I was like, all right, I can walk, and everything's even greater. And so I take 2-0, and it was center cutter. I mean, it couldn't have been a better pitch to hit off Mariano than that 2-0 pitch. And I took it, strike 1, and I can remember people going when I was done, why didn't you swing at that pitch? That was your pitch to hit. And I don't want to say that the announcers might even said that too. I said,
Right.
well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't get too jumpy in situations like that, get big, whatever. So, and then 2-1, I got a pitch, and I absolutely smoked it down the right field line. And I thought I just won the game, and I'm running, and I thought I just hit a double and walk it off, and it went foul, just hooked foul like a foot. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy was playing right field at the time, Shane Spencer. He was with us in camp the next year in Cleveland. He's, oh, Bill, that was foul by 10 feet. I'm like, dude, that wasn't even foul. It's always foul. You know, we laugh about it all the time. And so, and I remember because I was all the way to almost the first base when I got there. The walk back, I said, I'm not going to hurry and get back because so many people in this situation go, that was your shot, that was your pitch, you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is. The game's over. So I remember walking back as slow as I could, going, all right, let's go slow. Just be ready for a 2-strike pitch, blah, 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 blah. And he got a cutter up. And you know, what I like so much about Mariano, because this is, you know, and it's easy for the guy that hits a home run off of him to say, oh, he's the best closer of all time.
Yeah.
But he's the best closer of all time. And because he do it with one pitch, and you knew it was coming, and you couldn't do anything about it. And so, and his success in the postseason is unparalleled. And so, but anyway, he said the next day in the paper, or after the game, and it was published the next day, that, you know, a couple reporters, I don't know, were trying to get, you know, what an excuse from him or something like that. But he said, "Did you miss your spot? I mean, you know, I know it feels like this at the time is the first walk-off homer he'd given up." And he says, "No, I threw the ball right where I wanted, and he beat me." And I thought, and man, what better class than he threw the best pitch he had at the time at that pitch, you know? And so, yeah, I can remember. I don't even remember hitting first base. I can remember running around, and then once I get to home plate, it got absolutely pile drive by Jim Thome. And so it was a great moment. And, you know, we talked about, you know, how you asked me about, did I talk to Mesa the next day? Well, one of our players from Cleveland had been traded over to the Yankees, Ricky Wilson, earlier in the season. And so when we got to the field the next day, or the next series they came into town, we're hitting, Group 4's hitting, and they're stretching right there, and Enrique was, you know, kind of goading Mariano on, hey, watch out, this Selby right here, you know, you got problems. And so it's kind of cool like that. And so, you know, I did I won't say an interview, but I answered some questions for a guy that wrote a book on Mariano. And again, for a journeyman to have a moment like that in time, which is a moment he'd probably like to forget, or really it's just a blip on his radar.
Right.
How you're connected with that person because of the competition you have and of where your career takes you at that point in time. And so he was nothing but class and said, no, it's my best pitch. It wasn't my day, and it was his day. So my hat's off to him. And so it was a unique moment. And, you know, people ask all the time, is that the, you know, most memorable hit you got? I you know, memorable home run. And I said, well, yeah, for everybody it is. But my most memorable home run was the first one I hit in pro ball. And because I'd come off a year, and this is a sidebar, but this is the one I remember the most because it was the first one I hit in the minor leagues because we were in the Penn League. I'd just come off a season with Southern Miss where I led the country in homers. And I went a couple of weeks without hitting any. And I'm like, I'm hitting good, but I wasn't hitting any balls over the fence. And my scout had told me, look, you're not a big guy. You know, use wood bats. I don't know how many homers you're going to hit. And I was bound and determined I'm going to hit some homers. And so I remember we're playing at Auburn, New York. And it was there was kind of misty rain. And I remember hitting the ball at Auburn. It finally went over the fence. And I was so psyched that I hit it that I tripped over first base and just face planted going around first base and just chin full of mud and everything, people laughing. That was my most memorable home run because I couldn't enjoy it because I tripped and fell around first base. That was my memorable one.
So did you get the two-part question? Did you get to keep your first ever home run ball in the big leagues? And do you remember who you got it off of, your first home run ball?
My first home run in the big leagues was my first series against Cleveland. It was off Chad Ozak. Yes, I do have it. I have the one I hit off Mariano. The bat, I hit it off Mariano. I would say I used a couple of more days, and it broke, and I ended up giving it to somebody. So somebody asked me if I had the bat. I'm like, no. My first home run is unique because, of course, you get all your firsts, and, you know, Tim Wakefield, one of our players at the time, and I think he was a player rep as well. he got the ball and he got it all encrypted and everything like that. But Roger Clemens made a trade with a fan in the stands in Cleveland. This is the story I got of my first home run ball because the guy caught it, and I
Mm.
think he made a trade to say, "Hey, look, I'll get you this if you'll get me that home run ball." So I remember that they got somehow they got that's the story I got. It's a cool story if it's true. I like to think it's true
Yeah,
because
you just don't know
that's
for sure. Yeah, you don't know for
don't
sure.
know for sure, but they got me the ball. That the bullpen got me the ball that day, and
Right.
yes, I got that. And the guy that caught the home run that I hit off Mariano, he came. They brought him in. Fox News had brought him in the tunnel, and he didn't want anything. He just said, "Look, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen happen. I just want you to have the ball."
Yeah,
And
you
I'm
don't
trying to
see.
give him
Yeah,
everything. I'm
you
like,
don't
man,
see
I'll
that
give you
often.
whatever you want. Just
Yeah,
he said, I don't want anything. I just want you to have it because it's the
right.
coolest thing that we
And you
did.
don't
So
see that
yeah, I
often,
have a lot of those things.
especially
It's pretty cool.
nowadays. Yeah, you don't see that often nowadays. A lot of people want money or greed or something.
Yeah. And
So
so, I just think he shared in the same emotions that I had. Now, I think we ended up giving him stuff because whether he was going to take it or not, it was just a cool moment. So, but
right.
yeah, those things are kind of valuable to me in the sense that I'm not sentimental about too terribly a lot of things, but those yes, those first hits and those first home runs and things like that. Mm-hmm.
So two more questions before I let you go. It's another two-part question.
Right.
I saw you were a utility player. Do you think that ultimately helped you in your career being a utility guy? And obviously, you were a bench player. I see that because you only had about less than 200 at bats, so you were a bench player. Did you find it? The second part of that question is: do you feel it was hard to come off the bench, or I mean, you did fine at it, but do you felt like personally though it was kind of tough to come off the bench because you're coming off the bench cold?
Right. It as far as the first part, the first question, it absolutely prolonged my career dramatically to be able to play multiple positions. Because when I got drafted, you know, thank you for my college coach playing me at shortstop in college, but I had no business playing shortstop. I was not a shortstop, and so I got drafted as a second baseman, and so
Mhm.
I had experience in junior college as a second baseman. So that was probably my most natural position at the time. But when they drafted me at second, a few weeks into my first year, our third baseman went down in short season, and our manager literally walked in the locker room and said, "Can anybody here play third?" And I raised my hand, absolutely, I can. And so I ended up playing third a lot there, and that became my primary position. So as I got older, the opportunity came in the big leagues when they said, "Hey, look, Bill, you're valuable at second, third. That gave you a chance to get called up and have value. Could you play the outfield?" Yeah, absolutely, I
Yeah.
can play the outfield. So I mean, I remember breaking my first outfield glove in Boston and played some outfield there. Yeah, I played it when I was younger, but I would never say no. I couldn't do it. No,
Right.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I got a bunch of gloves in spring training, and
Right.
so uh, it gave me the versatility to say, hey, we like his bat and he's versatile. We can move him in and out here and there. So I ended up playing. I played some first in the big leagues before my career was up. I learned to catch when I was 30, and so I never caught in a big league game a game. I played in some backfield spring training games as a catcher, but I'd always go with the catchers to catch bullpens and help them out and just be an emergency guy. And I played all three outfield positions in the big leagues. The only position I don't think I played was shortstop. So the fact that could do that, I think there's no question in my mind that added to the I say value. It added to the ability to have some value for to use that versatility. As far as the role I played, when you're going through that role, it's very, I guess for a guy that's a bench guy, and the journeyman's the best quality or the best, I guess, moniker you can give a player like me because,
Mhm.
again, like I say, if you only start once a week, usually I laugh about this all the time. My starts with Cleveland a lot of times was when Pedro pitched or Kurt Schilling pitched or someone like that. It's like, let's give somebody a day off, with the future Hall of Famer. And I would go out there and survive like I was in you know, the fight of my life against one of the the best pitchers in the. But I didn't mind that because it was my opportunity to play. So
Yeah.
we guys that have played up and down roles and journeyman roles and searched for starts here and there lived and died on uh, just having quality at bats just to keep you. I'm doing my job the best of my ability. So when I understood my role, it's hard for some people to say, you know what, I'll be a utility guy. I didn't mind it because I'm a utility guy in the big leagues. What could be better than that?
Right.
It's either that or go back to the minor leagues and be a career minor leaguer. And so I try to utilize each day at my job, knowing I may not play today. I got to expect to play. I got to be prepared to play. I took ground balls at third. I took ground balls at second. I took fly balls in the outfield. I did early work. I did extra agility work, conditioning, because I wanted to be as much as I could the feeling mentally and physically that I was playing every day. And so pinch hitting was, and I tell my son this because he's a freshman in college, and right now he's playing some off the bench, and that's extremely difficult to do. And I said, that's
Yeah.
the single hardest job I've ever had. And to me, DHing is the second hardest because it's like pinch hitting 4 times.
Right.
So but when you're cold like that, I think what helped me, because I think I was I don't know, I don't go back and look. I think I was a pretty successful pinch hitter uh, because I tried to play the scenario out of when I might pinch hit. Even in a blowout game, well, there's a chance. Look, if we're scoring runs or getting blown out, there's a chance I may go in here and get an at bat or two. So
Yeah.
I didn't sit there and go make coffee and just sit there and go, what's on the spread? I would sit there and be ready, and whether it's stretching on my own or get some swings every couple of innings underneath or whatever. And same thing with pinch hitting. I kind of anticipated where the lineup was, how the flow of the game was, and yeah, if their closer was right-handed, there was a good chance I'm going to get a shot at a 99-mile fastball. So I had to mentally prepare for 9 innings that I might be there. And if you didn't, you could easily go, oh man, that was such an adrenaline dump. But it helped me be prepared when those opportunities came. So yes, it was a difficult uh, role that I played, but I really, looking back, I was like, well, I prepared the best I could at it.
Yeah.
And I think it made me appreciate more so the opportunities that I had throughout my career.
So the last question to you is, I ask everybody this. This is the last question I ask to everybody. Obviously, I know now you're a coach. You're still coaching, like you said. Um, so what do you tell your kids that want to get to where you're at? What do you tell them to get to where you were at? And the second part is define your career in one word.
Uh, to tell my son or anybody that has aspirations like I did, and this is unique. And I'll bring my mom up, and my wife and my mom have been instrumental in my son's career because he's a freshman in college, and he was a lot like me, a good left-handed hitter, not a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Always having to fight off the people. Well, he's not big, or he's not the fastest, or he's not this. So with the same things I fought off.
Mm-hmm.
But my son Eli would always compare himself. Well, yeah, but you played in the big leagues. Yeah, but you did this. And my wife and my mom would remind him, your dad was not a big leaguer at 18 years old. He
Right.
wasn't. He
Right.
wasn't a big leaguer until he was 25. And so, and I tell my son even to this day, that 7 years from now, I became a big leaguer. And how much work went into that time, and how much unknown is 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 why we do what we do. I said so. I always wanted to play pro ball, but all through college, I just wanted to be good, and I never filled out a pro scout card, or I never even thought about pro ball until my halfway through my spring season of my senior year. And so at that point, when I'm having a lot of success, then the questions came, then the pro cards came, the scout cards to fill out. But I had no idea until I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
And so all I could say was to my guys is, look, I put my head down and work. And my goal as a baseball player was to get better every day. And then if it worked out, it worked out. I mean, that's just literally how my career happened. And so I just focused on the day of saying, look, I want to be the best I can today, and hopefully that best is going to be one step better the next day. And then once it happens, or if it happens, then at that point you keep that same mentality. I'm gonna just and then the odds of making it to a big leagues is astronomically low because so many things have to fall into place. And if you focus on those things, then you lose the chance to develop and the whole process of getting to where you've gotten in the first place. So that's what I tell everybody else. As far as the second question, remind me what the second question was.
Define your career in one word.
One word. One word. I could go three or four. Let me go one. I'm gonna try to find one.
If you can't think of
Uh,
one word, that's
I
fine. You
got
can
one
do
right here.
you
This
can
is
do
going to
three
be a
or
little
four.
odd. I got one. Breathtaking.
There you go. Okay.
Breathtaking. So many emotions. I, my family and myself went through an up and down, a tumultuous, a wonderful, a chaotic career. It was just breathtaking going through it.
There you go. Couldn't have said it any better myself. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Feel
Absolutely.
free if you want to. I'll definitely stay in touch with you now that we're connected. I'll text you because we got a season up and coming. So I'll
Absolutely.
text you here and there through that too.
Yep.
Also love hearing more stories as well. So I'll definitely stay in touch for that. But it was fun. Thank you. And
Enjoyed it.
said, please share the episode. I'll send it to you. It was fun.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to. Thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you again.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Have a good night. Definitely.